Jason Parker never expected much from a Saturday at the flea market. Most weekends he wandered among the rows of second-hand books, dusty records, and old furniture with no particular aim, more out of habit than hope. It was a way to escape the dull routine of his work as a software developer, a way to pretend that life still held surprises. That morning, the market was alive with the usual hum, vendors shouting their deals, children running past with balloons, the smell of roasted nuts and strong coffee filling the air. A small, almost hidden table at the edge of the market caught his attention. It was cluttered with odds and ends, mostly items that looked like they had been forgotten years ago. Among the pile, something glinted in the sunlight. Jason bent down and picked up a ring. It was simple, made of brass with an unusual pattern etched along the band. The symbols were strange, not like any design he had ever seen before. They twisted and curled in a way that seemed almost alive. "What's this?" Jason asked the elderly man sitting behind the table. The man's eyes were sharp despite his age, and a knowing smile tugged at his lips. "Ah, that? No idea," the vendor said with a shrug. "Came from some old collection. I've had it for years. Take it if you like it. Cheap, too." Jason held the ring in his hand, turning it over slowly. It felt warmer than the metal should, almost as if it was pulsing. A strange sensation ran up his arm, gentle but undeniable. Without thinking too much, he slipped it onto his finger. It fit perfectly. He walked around the rest of the market, but the ring refused to leave his mind. It wasn't just beautiful or odd, it felt important. Something about it called to him in a way he couldn't explain. By the time he returned to his small apartment later that evening, the ring had settled into his skin. He stared at it for a long time, tracing the strange symbols with his finger. Then it happened. At first, it was subtle. The air around him seemed to shimmer, colors becoming sharper, edges of furniture almost glowing. Then a warmth spread through his hand, up his arm, and into his chest. Jason's heart beat faster as a sudden vertigo washed over him. His surroundings blurred and shifted. In a blink, he was no longer in his apartment. He stood on a vast open plain under two suns that cast a golden and violet light across the landscape. Towering crystal structures rose from the ground like natural skyscrapers, reflecting the light in dazzling patterns. Strange creatures moved gracefully in the distance, their shapes unlike anything he had ever seen. They walked on multiple limbs, some gliding silently through the air, others moving with a fluid grace on the ground. A voice echoed inside his mind, clear and melodic. "Welcome, Jason Parker. You are chosen." Jason stumbled backward, clutching his head. Chosen for what? He managed to ask aloud, though the voice answered before he could speak again. "You wear the sign," the voice said. "The ring belongs to the Queen of Zorinthia. You are bound to her." His mind reeled. Zorinthia? An alien queen? This had to be some kind of hallucination. Yet the clarity of the voice, the vividness of the landscape left no doubt it was real. His rational mind struggled to keep up with the impossible truth. From the distance, a figure approached. She was tall, elegant, radiating an inner light that made her skin seem translucent. Her hair shimmered like liquid gold, and her eyes glowed with molten silver. There was no need for introduction. Her presence demanded respect, yet there was a warmth to it that eased the fear twisting in Jason's chest. "I am Queen Illyria," she said, her voice resonating in his mind and ears simultaneously. "And you, Jason, are now my consort. The ring binds us." Jason's knees weakened. I don't even know you," he stammered. "You will learn," Illyria replied, her tone soft but commanding. "The bond is real and it cannot be undone easily." Jason tried to pull the ring off, but it wouldn't move. The warmth intensified, spreading through him, connecting him to Illyria in a way he could not control. A flood of images and feelings crashed into him. He saw cities carved from crystal, oceans shimmering like liquid light, forests where plants communicated in bursts of color and movement. He saw beings of incredible intelligence, skilled in ways humans had never dreamed. He felt the joy and sorrow of a civilization far older and more advanced than his own. "Do you understand now?" Illyria asked, her eyes locking onto his. "Our worlds are connected. You are part of my life, and my life is part of yours." Jason's head spun. "This is a lot," he admitted. "I don't know if I can—" "You will adjust," Illyria said gently. "You were chosen for a reason. Humans. You are stronger than you realize." Jason blinked. Stronger than he realized? Humans were capable, yes, but this was beyond anything he had imagined. And yet as he gazed at Illyria, something inside him stirred. A mixture of fear, awe, and curiosity filled him. "I'll try," he said finally, his voice small but determined. Illyria's golden eyes softened. "That is enough for now. When you awaken, your role will become clearer." Suddenly, the alien world faded. Jason found himself back on his couch, the ring still warm on his finger. His apartment looked the same as before, ordinary and familiar. But he knew it would never feel the same. The world outside his apartment seemed dull, muted, compared to what he had just experienced. The next morning, Jason tried to explain what had happened to his friend Mark over coffee. "You got high or something?" Mark said, raising an eyebrow skeptically. "No, I swear. It's real. The ring, there's a queen, and she chose me," Jason said, feeling ridiculous even as he spoke. Mark laughed. "Man, that's one weird flea market story. Maybe you should see a doctor." Jason couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't a joke or a hallucination. The ring pulsed softly on his finger, a constant reminder of the bond that had been formed. He felt sharper, more aware, as if some hidden part of his mind had been awakened. At night he dreamed of Zorinthia, of Illyria, and of a bond that he did not fully understand but could not ignore. Days passed. Jason noticed subtle changes. His reflexes improved. He could sense emotions in people more clearly, almost like reading a room as a field of energy. Occasionally, the symbols on the ring would lift slightly, floating in the air, pulsing with light as if trying to communicate. One evening, a cup slipped from the kitchen counter and Jason caught it midair without thinking. The ring pulsed as if approving the action. Then came the first message, not in words but in feeling. Urgent, insistent, filling his mind with a clarity that made his pulse race. "Come to Zorinthia. The council awaits. Your bond must be formalized." Jason stared at the ring. He had no idea how this could be possible. He was an ordinary man, a programmer with no experience in politics, no knowledge of alien worlds. And yet the Queen of Zorinthia wanted him to travel across the stars to a world he had only glimpsed in dreams. For the first time, Jason felt the weight of destiny. Everything had led to this moment. The flea market, the dusty brass ring, the impulse decision to buy it. All of it had brought him here, to the threshold of a life he could never have imagined. A thrill ran through him, equal parts fear and excitement. Adventure, danger, and discovery awaited him. And Jason Parker, the man who had bought a simple ring on a whim, was no longer just a man. He was the chosen consort of an alien queen, and nothing would ever be the same. He looked at the ring once more, feeling the warmth, the connection, the subtle pull toward another world. He knew the journey would not be easy. He knew the Council of Zorinthia could be demanding, even dangerous. But beneath all the uncertainty, a single truth shone brightly. He was no longer ordinary. Something extraordinary had begun, and there was no turning back. Jason took a deep breath. The ring pulsed again, almost like a heartbeat in sync with his own. Somewhere among the stars, Queen Illyria waited, and he was bound to her by forces beyond understanding. He didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in his life, he felt alive in a way he never had before. And with that, he knew that the story of his life had changed forever. Jason Parker spent the next few days in a strange mixture of anticipation and anxiety. The ring on his finger pulsed lightly like it had a life of its own, reminding him constantly that his ordinary life had ended the moment he had slipped it onto his hand. Sleep brought him visions of Zorinthia, shimmering crystal cities, skies with two suns, and the graceful glowing form of Queen Illyria. He could feel her presence even when awake, faint but undeniable, tugging at him, calling him to a world he did not yet know how to reach. The night before his departure, Jason paced his small apartment, the ring cool against his skin in the dim light. He had packed nothing for the journey. He didn't even know what to pack. Illyria's instructions had been simple. Come as you are. The rest will follow. But Jason's mind refused to accept simplicity. He imagined the alien landscapes he had seen in dreams, the strange creatures and the potential dangers awaiting him. A part of him wanted to stay, to ignore the call and pretend the visions were just dreams. Yet another part, deeper and stronger, urged him forward. When morning arrived, the ring pulsed sharply. A warm glow filled the room, and suddenly Jason felt his surroundings dissolve once more. The sensation was like falling and flying at the same time, a rush of wind and light that made his stomach lurch. Moments later, he stood on a platform high above Zorinthia's capital city. Crystal towers stretched toward the twin suns, reflecting light in every possible color. Bridges of energy connected the structures, and beings of strange, beautiful forms moved with a grace that seemed choreographed by the world itself. Jason's first instinct was fear. Every step he took felt surreal. Yet as he breathed in the alien air, sharp and clean, he felt an unexpected clarity. His body moved with purpose, almost as if the ring had tuned him to the world around him. He felt stronger, lighter, and aware of details he had never noticed before. Vibrations in the air, distant sounds, subtle movements in the light. A voice echoed in his mind again, calm and commanding. "Welcome, Jason Parker. You have arrived." He turned to see Illyria herself descending a set of stairs made from transparent crystal. Her presence was magnificent, more powerful than in his dreams, yet there was a warmth to her that made him feel he belonged. "You've come," she said, her voice carrying both authority and tenderness. "I knew you would," Jason swallowed. I'm here," he said, though his words felt inadequate. Illyria stepped closer, the light around her flickering with energy. "This is the Hall of Bonds. It is where your connection will be formalized. It is not a simple ceremony, Jason. There are responsibilities, duties, and dangers you will face, but you have been chosen because you can rise to meet them." The hall itself was breathtaking. Towers of crystal spiraled toward the ceiling, light refracting through them like liquid rainbows. Strange glyphs floated in the air, symbols that Jason instinctively understood in ways his human mind should not have been able to. Other beings, attendants of Illyria's court, watched quietly from a distance. They were humanoid but taller, with subtle features that shimmered faintly, hinting at abilities humans could barely comprehend. "You will need to learn quickly," Illyria continued. "Your humanity is your strength, Jason. Never forget that." Jason nodded, unsure what else to say. The words felt weighty, carrying a meaning that went far beyond their simple form. He realized then that he was not just a visitor to this world. He was part of it, bound by the ring and by something deeper he did not yet understand. As he walked through the hall, he began to sense the nuances of alien life. Energy flowed in patterns, subtle currents that connected beings, objects, and even the structures themselves. He felt them and instinctively knew how to navigate them. A soft voice in his mind guided him, small nudges of understanding from Illyria herself. Every step he took was guided, yet he felt his own strength, his own human intuition blending with it. Finally, they reached the central chamber, a circular platform suspended above an enormous crystalline pool. Illyria gestured, and the platform glowed, illuminating intricate carvings of humans and Zorinthians together, legends of past consorts, partnerships, and shared victories. Jason's heart pounded. He could feel the weight of history pressing on him. "You must accept the bond willingly," Illyria said. "It cannot be forced. Only with consent can the connection be complete." Jason stared at her, at the light, at the strange, almost living architecture around him. Fear rose, but beneath it a strange confidence emerged. He could feel the pull of the ring, the connection to Illyria growing stronger. The air seemed to hum with expectation. I accept," he said finally. Immediately, the platform pulsed with light. The ring glowed intensely, and Jason felt a rush of energy coursing through him. Memories of Illyria's world, its joys and sorrows, its victories and struggles filled his mind. He could see through her eyes for a moment, feel her thoughts, her concerns, and her hopes. It was overwhelming but also enlightening. He understood, in a way that words could not describe, the trust she placed in him. When the light faded, he found himself standing taller, feeling more complete. Illyria's gaze met his, and for a moment there were no words, only understanding. The bond was real, undeniable, and it had begun to shape him in ways he did not yet fully comprehend. "You have done well," Illyria said softly. "Now you will train, learn, and prepare. Zorinthia has many challenges, and you will face them alongside me." Over the next few days, Jason began the first stage of his training. It was not the physical training he expected. Instead, it was a blending of mind, senses, and perception. He learned to sense energy flows, understand alien communication, and navigate environments that defied human logic. Each exercise stretched him beyond his limits. Yet he discovered resilience and intuition he had never known he possessed. During one session, he struggled to maintain focus while a holographic simulation of Zorinthia's capital, was flooded with chaotic energy. He faltered, nearly overwhelmed by the intensity. Yet, as Illyria's guidance touched his mind, he steadied himself, grounding his human instincts with the alien perception she shared. He emerged stronger, more capable, and more confident in his place within this world. Outside the training chamber, Jason explored parts of Zorinthia he had only glimpsed in dreams. He walked along bridges of energy suspended above vast crystal valleys, watched creatures that shimmered like light itself, and felt a deep connection to a world that had once seemed impossible. Everywhere he went, beings regarded him with curiosity, respect, and sometimes disbelief. A human in Zorinthia was rare, but the ring marked him as chosen, giving him a presence that commanded attention. Evenings were quieter, spent with Illyria in gardens that glowed under the twin suns. She shared stories of her people, their history, and their hopes for the future. Jason listened, absorbing everything, understanding more each day why humanity, its adaptability, resilience, and creativity, was a quality that Illyria valued in a consort. Yet danger was never far. Rumors of political unrest reached him even in the early days, whispers of factions within Zorinthia who did not welcome an outsider. Jason realized that being bonded to Illyria was not only an honor, it carried risk. Enemies might test him, challenge him, or use him as leverage against the Queen. Each lesson, each exercise was preparation for not just survival, but for leadership, judgment, and courage. Despite the intensity, Jason felt a growing sense of purpose. The bond was more than magical, it was a partnership. Illyria had chosen him not just as a consort, but as an ally, a human whose unique strengths complemented the brilliance of Zorinthia. He began to see himself differently, not as an ordinary man from Earth, but as someone capable of extraordinary things. One evening, as he stood beside Illyria watching the twin suns dip below the crystalline horizon, he felt the ring pulse strongly. He looked at her, seeing the light reflecting in her golden eyes. "I don't know if I'm ready for everything," he admitted quietly. Illyria smiled, a mixture of reassurance and challenge in her expression. "None of us are ever fully ready, Jason. But readiness is not about perfection. It is about courage, heart, and the willingness to grow. You have all of that." Jason took a deep breath. The words sank in, mingling with the strength he felt from the bond, the energy of the ring, and the awareness he had gained. He realized that he had a place here, not as a visitor, but as a part of something greater than himself. As the suns disappeared and stars began to shimmer above Zorinthia, Jason Parker understood that his journey had only just begun. Challenges, dangers, and wonders awaited him, but he was no longer alone. He had Illyria, the bond, and the hidden strengths within himself, and in that moment, he made a silent promise. He would rise to meet whatever Zorinthia demanded, for himself, for Illyria, and for the extraordinary new life that the ring had chosen for him. Jason Parker had been in Zorinthia for weeks now, and though he had adapted to much of its strange beauty, a sense of tension lingered beneath the surface. The palace, with its glittering towers and bridges of light, was a place of power, politics, and careful observation. Every being from Illyria's attendants to the council members seemed to watch him with subtle scrutiny, as if testing the limits of this human consort. Jason knew that the bond with Illyria gave him a special place in this world, but it also made him a target. That morning, Illyria summoned him to the council chamber. Jason followed her through corridors of translucent crystal, the light refracting in colors that danced across the walls and floors. His heart beat faster as they approached the chamber. The Council of Zorinthia was unlike anything he had imagined. A circle of beings, each radiating authority, their forms elegant yet formidable. They regarded him quietly, some with curiosity, others with barely concealed skepticism. "Jason Parker," Illyria said, standing beside him, "you are to face your first test. This is not simply a trial of skill, but of judgment, courage, and loyalty. You represent humanity here." Jason swallowed. Represent humanity? He had never considered himself remarkable, yet now he understood the weight of those words. Every action, every decision would reflect not only on him but on his species. The council leader, a tall figure with translucent wings that shimmered in the light, spoke. "Human Jason Parker, you are aware that Zorinthia faces internal unrest. There are factions who see your presence as a weakness, a potential threat. Your first task is to mediate a dispute before it escalates into conflict. Failure is not an option. Jason felt a cold shiver. Mediate an alien political dispute? This was far beyond any test he had imagined. Illyria placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Remember, Jason, use your human strengths. Observe, listen, and act with empathy. You are capable. He nodded, though doubt gnawed at him. He had been trained to sense energy flows, to understand subtle communication, but politics was unpredictable. Every word mattered. Every decision could tip the balance. The council transported him to a grand hall in one of Zorinthia's outer districts. It was a place of negotiation, where representatives from two rival factions had gathered. The air crackled with tension. The factions were powerful, their members tall and formidable, their energy radiating dominance and impatience. Jason could feel the hostility, the unspoken threats, the pride and fear. He took a deep breath, recalling Illyria's guidance. Observe, listen, empathize. He stepped forward. Representatives, he began, his voice steady despite the quiver in his chest. I am here to understand your concerns and help find a solution. Please speak openly. The taller of the two faction leaders, a figure with silver-toned skin and eyes like polished crystal, sneered. And why should a human, an outsider, concern himself with our matters? Jason met his gaze. Because your conflict affects the balance of Zorinthia, and because Illyria trusts me to help, I am here to listen and to find a solution, not to judge unfairly. A ripple of murmurs ran through the room. The other faction leader, slightly shorter but equally imposing, leaned forward. We do not trust humans nor their judgment. Jason's heart raced, but he focused. He remembered the bond with Illyria, the understanding it granted him. He reached out with his mind, not to control, but to sense emotions, fears, and motives. Slowly, he began to untangle the underlying tensions. Pride, fear of losing influence, and past grievances had created a web of anger. But beneath it all, both factions wanted stability. They wanted respect and security for their people. Your concerns are valid, Jason said, speaking calmly but firmly. I can see the reasons behind your fears, but escalating conflict will harm everyone. If we work together, we can create a plan that addresses each of your concerns without sacrificing the other. Each side must compromise, but compromise does not mean weakness. The taller leader glared but said nothing. The shorter one's expression softened slightly. Jason continued, using simple logic and human empathy. He pointed out shared goals, highlighted past collaborations, and suggested practical steps that would satisfy both sides. Slowly, cautiously, the tension in the room eased. Hours passed. Jason felt drained but determined. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the factions nodded in agreement. A formal accord was drafted, not perfect but functional. Jason's heart lifted. He had succeeded. Humans were not seen as weak, after all. Their ability to understand, empathize, and think creatively could solve problems even a highly advanced alien species struggled with. Returning to the council chamber, Jason felt a mixture of relief and pride. Illyria's golden eyes met his. You have done well, she said, her voice carrying warmth and approval. You have shown them and yourself what humanity can offer. Strength is not only in power, Jason. It is in understanding, courage, and the willingness to act wisely. Jason nodded, feeling the truth in her words. The bond with Illyria had not only connected him to Zorinthia, but had unlocked a potential within himself he had never known. He was more than human. He was a bridge between worlds. The council members, once skeptical, now regarded him with respect. Some nodded subtly, others smiled faintly. The human consort had earned his place. In the days that followed, Jason's confidence grew. He trained harder, learning not only about alien diplomacy but about combat strategy and leadership. Illyria guided him through each challenge, testing his mind and body. He learned to anticipate danger, read subtle energy cues, and make decisions under pressure. Each day he became stronger, not because he was naturally extraordinary, but because he was human, and humans adapted, survived, and thrived through ingenuity and determination. Yet the world of Zorinthia was not without danger. Rumors of discontent reached Jason even in quiet moments. Some factions were not pleased with Illyria's choice of a human consort. Secret meetings were held. Whispers of plots and subterfuge circulated in the air. Jason knew that his role required vigilance as much as wisdom. Failure could mean more than personal consequences. It could destabilize the Queen's rule, the fragile alliances, and even risk lives. One evening, as Jason walked along the crystalline balconies overlooking the city, Illyria joined him. Her presence was calm, but there was a tension in her posture that Jason recognized instantly. "Jason, you must understand," she said quietly. "The challenges you face are only beginning. Some will see you as a threat. Some will try to manipulate or test you. You must stay alert, trust your instincts, and rely on your humanity." Jason nodded. "I understand. I won't fail you or Zorinthia." Illyria's hand rested lightly on his shoulder. "You will not. You have already proven your worth. Remember, being human is not a weakness here. It is a strength. You bring perspective, creativity, and courage that even we sometimes lack. That is why you were chosen." Jason felt a surge of determination. The trials ahead would be dangerous, but he was no longer just a visitor. He was part of Zorinthia, part of Illyria's life, and part of something far greater than himself. Over the next weeks, Jason faced smaller challenges, mediating disputes, assisting in planning defensive strategies, and learning the complexities of Zorinthia's culture and politics. Each task tested him, yet with each success his confidence and understanding grew. The bond with Illyria deepened, allowing him to anticipate her needs, understand her intentions, and support her in ways that even seasoned Zorinthians could not. One night, as the twin suns set and the city shimmered in twilight, Jason realized just how far he had come. He was no longer the hesitant man who had bought a mysterious ring at a flea market. He was a consort, a mediator, a protector, and a symbol of humanity's potential. Illyria had chosen him not just for his courage, but for his capacity to grow, adapt, and act wisely. And though he knew dangers still awaited, Jason felt ready. He had faced his first trial, earned respect, and begun to understand the extraordinary life he had been given. Humans were more than capable, more than resilient. They could shine even among the stars. And as he looked toward Illyria, standing beside him in the glowing gardens of Zorinthia, Jason knew that whatever trials lay ahead, he would meet them with courage, heart, and the strength of humanity. For the first time, he felt certain of one truth. He had a purpose greater than himself, a destiny entwined with a world far beyond Earth. And the extraordinary journey of Jason Parker, the human consort, was only beginning. Jason Parker stood at the edge of Zorinthia's Grand Plaza, the twin suns hanging low in the sky, casting long violet and gold shadows across the crystal towers. The city pulsed with life, elegant beings moving with grace, their eyes occasionally flicking to him with a mixture of respect and curiosity. This was the day he had been preparing for, the ultimate test of his courage, wisdom, and humanity. The unrest had grown louder over the past weeks. A faction that opposed the human consort had rallied forces, planning a challenge to Illyria's authority. Rumors spoke of sabotage, of attempts to undermine the council, and even to capture Jason as a way to destabilize the Queen's rule. The council had advised caution, yet Illyria insisted he face this trial head-on. "Jason," Illyria said, her voice calm but carrying an unmistakable weight, "you have learned much. Today you will demonstrate what it truly means to be a partner, to protect Zorinthia, and to show the strength of humanity. The bond we share will guide you, but your courage must lead the way." Jason swallowed hard, feeling the warmth of the ring against his finger. The pulsing was stronger than ever, as if acknowledging the gravity of the day. He had faced disputes, learned diplomacy, and adapted to alien strategies, but this challenge was different. This was not a simulation or a lesson, it was real, with consequences that could shape the future of the entire world. The Grand Plaza stretched before him, vast and open, lined with translucent spires and hovering platforms. The opposing faction had gathered in the center, their energy tense and sharp, radiating distrust and aggression. Jason could feel it all, the waves of anger and suspicion, the subtle undercurrents of fear. He breathed deeply, centering himself, letting the lessons Illyria had taught him guide his instincts. "Jason Parker," the faction leader called out, voice resonating across the plaza. "You are human. You do not belong here. Step aside or face the consequences." Jason stepped forward. "I am not here to fight unnecessarily," he said, voice steady, carrying through the plaza. "But I will defend this city, its people, and the Queen I serve. I am not your enemy, but I will stand against injustice. The tension exploded into motion. Figures advanced with energy weapons, their attacks swift and precise. Jason dodged instinctively, reacting faster than he thought possible. The bond with Illyria sharpened his senses, heightened his awareness, but it was his human ingenuity that allowed him to anticipate the moves, to find openings to act decisively. He used the environment to his advantage, leaping onto a raised platform, redirecting energy pulses with carefully timed movements, disarming opponents without causing lasting harm. Every action combined human intuition with alien adaptability, and he could see the effect: hesitation, surprise, and eventually, respect forming in the eyes of the faction members. Illyria watched from the palace balcony, her golden eyes calm and focused. She could feel Jason's determination, the courage that humans carried in moments of uncertainty. "You can do this," she whispered in his mind. "Trust yourself. Trust your humanity." Jason's confidence grew with each encounter. He realized that he did not need to overpower them with sheer force. Strategy, understanding, and adaptability were far stronger. Using quick thinking, he managed to block a critical attack, then redirected its energy safely, showing both strength and mercy. The crowd of onlookers, Zorinthian citizens who had gathered to witness the confrontation, murmured in awe. After a tense sequence of maneuvers, the faction's leader finally paused, a mixture of frustration and respect in his eyes. Jason stood firm, breathing heavily, sweat running down his face, yet his stance unwavering. "Human," the leader said, voice steady but wary. "You have proven yourself, not through brute strength but through intelligence, courage, and honor. Perhaps your presence here is not a weakness after all." Jason lowered his hands, nodding. "I am not here to conquer. I am here to protect, to serve, and to build understanding between our peoples." The faction members slowly withdrew, their tension easing. The plaza fell silent, the citizens watching Jason with newfound respect. Even Illyria's advisors, once skeptical, now looked at him with recognition of his capability. He had not only defended the Queen and the city, but had demonstrated the unique strengths of humanity, adaptability, empathy, and the courage to face overwhelming odds. Illyria descended to the plaza, her form radiant under the twin suns. She approached Jason, placing her hand lightly on his shoulder. "You have done more than I could have hoped," she said softly. "Today you have shown Zorinthia what it means to embrace the unfamiliar, to combine strength with compassion. Humans are remarkable, Jason. And so are you." Jason felt a warmth spread through him, the bond with Illyria pulsing in perfect harmony. He realized that the trials, the training, and the challenges had shaped him, not into someone other than himself, but into someone greater. Humanity was not diminished among the stars. It was capable of shining brilliantly, even in a world so different from Earth. The council approached, nodding in approval. "The human consort has proven himself," the leader said. "Your wisdom, courage, and empathy have strengthened Zorinthia. You honor the bond and the Queen." Jason bowed slightly, feeling both humility and pride. He had been ordinary once, a man who bought a mysterious ring at a flea market. Now he stood as a symbol of cooperation, resilience, and the extraordinary potential of humans in a galaxy full of wonders. As the celebrations began in the plaza, Jason finally allowed himself to relax. Illyria stood beside him, radiant and proud, and for the first time he felt completely at home in Zorinthia. The bond they shared was not just magical, it was a partnership built on trust, understanding, and mutual respect. In the following weeks, Jason continued to grow into his role. He helped negotiate alliances with neighboring worlds, guided strategies for defense and diplomacy, and learned to navigate the complex web of Zorinthia's culture and politics. His human perspective brought fresh ideas and approaches that even the most experienced Zorinthians had overlooked. Citizens began to see humans in a new light. Where once there had been skepticism, curiosity, and even fear, there was now admiration. Stories of Jason Parker, the human who had saved Zorinthia through courage, wisdom, and empathy, spread across the planet. He became a symbol, not just of a human in an alien world, but of the potential for cooperation, understanding, and the extraordinary that humanity could achieve. One evening, Jason and Illyria walked through a glowing garden atop one of the crystal towers. The twin suns had set, leaving the sky alive with stars that shimmered like liquid diamonds. You have done more than I could have imagined, Illyria said, her golden eyes reflecting the starlight. Together we have shown that humanity is capable of greatness, not by strength alone but by courage, heart, and the willingness to act wisely. Jason smiled, feeling a profound sense of accomplishment. I never imagined this when I bought that ring, he said softly. It was just a flea market find, and now my life is something I couldn't have dreamed of. Illyria laughed gently, a sound that was both musical and warm. Sometimes the smallest choices lead to the greatest destinies. That ring brought you here, Jason, but it was your heart, your humanity, and your courage that allowed you to rise to the challenge. Jason felt the bond pulse once more, a comforting warmth that reminded him he was no longer alone. He had a purpose, a partner, and a world to protect. Humans were no longer just observers of the stars. They were capable of shaping them, influencing worlds and leaving their mark on the galaxy. And as he looked out over the city, sparkling under starlight, Jason Parker realized that his journey was far from over. There would always be challenges, threats, and tests of character. But he now knew that with courage, empathy, and the strength of humanity, he could face anything. He took Illyria's hand in his, feeling the warmth and power of their bond, and together they stood, gazing at the vast horizon. Jason had started as an ordinary man with a simple brass ring, but he had become so much more, a consort, a hero, a symbol of humanity's enduring strength. The city, the stars, and the universe itself seemed to acknowledge his presence, and for the first time, Jason understood that the extraordinary life he now led was only the beginning. Zorinthia had accepted him, Illyria had trusted him, and humanity had shown through him that even in the most alien of worlds, the human spirit could shine brighter than any star. The adventure was far from over, but Jason Parker was ready. He was no longer just a man who had stumbled upon a ring. He was the human consort of an alien queen, a bridge between worlds, and a reminder that ordinary choices could lead to extraordinary destinies. And as the twin moons rose over the city, casting their soft glow across the crystal towers, Jason knew that he had found his place among the stars, and that humanity's story in the universe had only just begun.